He read poetry at the edge of the Grand Canyon to me at sunset. We made love during an incredible hailstorm.
Every time I saw her, my heart leapt.
I felt like my best self with him.
Everywhere in the world, people express this feeling. It's one of the most powerful brain systems ever created.
If there was ever a passionate love affair in the history of mankind, ours reached that level. I could see a future with him, and now I can't see anything.
She broke it off in a casual, offhand way.
When you've been rejected, you're still madly in love with this person, and you are in physical and emotional pain.
I had a friend come and take down all the pictures in my apartment of him so I don't have to look at him.
We need to understand that this is an addiction.
Why am I passing by her house almost every night?
I look at his profile 1,000,000 times a day. What in the world did we do before Facebook?
The ancient Greeks called it the madness of the gods.
I feel like I've been dunked in a cold bath.
When am I going to get angry enough to drop her?
He fucked it up for himself and it's done.
You still continue to love this person. In fact, you love them even harder.
The game of love matters.
I want to be held. I want someone to hold me. If I close my eyes, I remember how he smells. I just want to hit, just one fix of that smell.
This is how we say goodbye.
No more living in a fantasy.
Thank God for my amazing friends. I feel that they're my real family. They are the best thing in my life right now.
It's a step. It's a step out of the dark.
You can't film the happy side in a documentary way. Leave it to the fiction guys. I mean, it's just impossible. No, I mean, come on. You can't be with a camera when these things happening with the hands and this electrification, and you might have this. It's also some form of an epiphany. This other human being is craving me and is sending me again a text, and wow, and so what I'm doing in the loneliness of this universe, there is somebody else. You know, I mean, this is the dimension love has. It is much more than reproduction. That's what I was interested. You know, we are being supposed to reproduce, that's why we have the sex drive, and that's important and big and complicated. But love is bigger. It's something about us in the universe. The fact that somebody is craving us and constantly thinking about us is so existential, you know? But you can't film that in a documentary way. I mean, this is you in bed hoping that it makes ping, you know, that you have the next WhatsApp message when you are in love. And exactly the same when you are lovelorn. Because you still hope to get the next WhatsApp message, and you better shouldn't, and put your iPhone on off and put it in somewhere. Again, you can't film that either in a documentary way. Because it would mean, I mean, you know what it would mean. You cannot go to bed and Peter might told, you know, I mean, it's documentary. So I tried, of course, to do something on love which is filmable in a documentary way. And it's, of course, the absence of love. It's easier than love itself. Difficult protagonist, first of all. Again, I was expecting and hoping for a bigger catharsis in Michael's life. I mean, for him also. We are friends. I take care of him, you know. He would have killed himself without the film, by the way. He didn't really have this catharsis so much, but he had at least he's a loner, you know, somehow. So he had his cello lessons, and I knew this guy, they are talking about these things. And yes, of course, it's arranged, you know, I mean, hello, this is again, this is big camera, normal setting, me not in the room, not even the sound guy. Normally it's just Peter, them, but it's all set up. I mean, the mics are in and blah, blah, blah. And they also know that I'm not just interested that it's a normal cello, lesson. I mean, hello? Because I knew research, that they are actually also talking about their lives. And of course, Michael's main problem was that he felt, because this attractive woman is just inviting him to bring the newspaper. I mean, you ask normally your dog to bring the newspaper, no? I'm not kidding. But for him, wow, she's inviting me to bed to read the newspaper. I mean, this is kind of an awful thing. I don't think it's so funny from a man's perspective. I mean, he's a loving man. Not that he wants sex only, he wants to have a reason, an emotional reason to be close to this woman and not just bringing the newspaper and reading the newspaper and then her falling asleep. It's kind of tragic, no? But it's also funny because we have to defend ourselves from this kind of reality. Ugh. So that's why it sounds funny, but it's not actually. It's his drama. He should just let go and tell her, that's it, no more. You can buy your newspaper yourself. So I think you get a glimpse, at least, of his situation. And this is what I tried to portray in Sleepless. It's really love. And what does it mean? Again, it's not the sex drive. Don't confuse that. Nobody's killing himself because you don't get sex. You do it because you don't get love. People kill themselves. It's a deadly thing. And it's also the most wonderful thing and the thing making us feeling that there's a reason for life. So this has this dimension, and it's, of course, just difficult to film. So you try your best. I didn't really succeed in everything. And I'm not blaming Michael, really not, because that's reality. But nobody wants to finally go out of the cinema, and there is still an unwrapped need for a catharsis and for somebody coming out of this shitty addiction. You want him to be a hero and to get rid of this woman. He didn't. I can't force him. I tried my best for the sake of the film and for himself. At least we had the same interest, I mean, it's amazing. Why can't we let go when there is all the reason we should just let go? It's actually nobody really knows that. It's so irrational. As much as you have all the reason to be excited when you are in love, because again, it's about loneliness in the universe and blah, 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 and our reason to life and somebody mirroring us. But then when it's over, it's over. You should just let go. As simple as that. Every close friend is telling you that. And you can't. Shit. And it's not pleasant to watch them. It's like doing a film on a heroin addict and you just show them putting another needle in their arm, and you don't want to see that. You want to see them getting out of this shit. And it doesn't happen all the times. And I was also fascinated with Rosie, this burlesque dance. I mean, she's amazing. How can you be so unhappy after one nice night? That's an incredible phenomenon, The Shark Tank, the kissing, no sex. Again, maybe the sex would have saved her from climbing up this tree of love and doing this fantasy that he's the man of her life. Women tend to do that, more than men, by the way, of really stalking them men and constructing a whole construct of fantasy. If you are a star, if you suffer sometimes the stalking of people who just define you as their fantasy partner. 6 months of being unhappy because of one kiss in front of the sharks. And it's true. And she's such I like her world, this burlesque. That was also fascinating, but burlesque has to do with sex. I mean, it's basically striptease, a very nice early form. There's these young people, they like it, they show their bodies as they are. It's not about being supermodels. It's kind of a lively form of showing, this is me and my body. So she had also all the reason of being just a happy girl. I mean, it's really interesting, this love thing. I mean, why Michael not in the MRI? Because it's redundant. You don't want to see two people putting into this. Not the way these films are being shot, you know, because it's this kind of scenes where you're almost like in a fiction film. You go with Ali and Helen, you enter the room, she's crying afterwards. I mean, it's the real thing. It's not just the information about her results. So that's why he has nothing to do in this. And the second reason was, of course, I was really lucky with her, because the problem with the logistics of Sleepless was you have to reserve the MRI months before. That's a very expensive machine in a university. I mean, it's an MRI. You can't, for example, you can't enter the room with the camera, because it's such a strong magnet. They would destroy the thing. You have to film from outside, and it's very complex. So I had a reservation for the MRI. I just needed a lovelorn person inside, and it couldn't be an actor because we are looking into the brain, so you see the real thing. Acting doesn't really help, unless maybe it's super method acting and somebody would be capable of really manipulate the core of their brain. I mean, that's a task. No, I needed a really super lovelorn, desperate person, freshly dumped. In a meeting, in this. And I was very lucky with Ali, because we had this whole system with this real people casting, two of them in New York, doing a great work, very, very extensive work, how to reach out to all possible protagonists, because it came closer and closer. And again, it had to be very fresh. So Ali was dumped 10 days before that. And within these 10 days, I managed to talk with her every night on Skype. And I knew this is my person. I persuaded her to do that, which was quite easy, because she is a personality which obviously you see that she is not introverted, she's very extroverted. Anyway, as a person, you know, she likes. And she could feel that it will be helpful for her to be part of this experiment. So I then worked more with her, because immediately after the MRI, I knew she's doing flowers for weddings, which is, of course, paradox again. Instinct, wow, paradox, nice, you know, that's what we need. I mean, in this day, to do it for your best friend, the flowers for their wedding, it's not so easy. So that's exactly what we are going to film. You go where it's difficult. For you, it's difficult when it's easy for them. It's impossible just to film in a nice way somebody just going to Starbucks and drinking a cup of coffee. How should they act in front of your camera? There's nothing to do. They would, of course, play around with their smartphones. It's also helpful, finally, for your protagonist if it's difficult and they're being filmed then, because they don't see the camera. So it's actually a win-win situation, but you have to persuade them and you make it happen. And the whole scene when Ali is doing these flowers, that was a shoot of 4 hours, because she was sleeping 1.5 hours within that. What you saw is the following. It's her living room full of flowers. The real ones, by the way, I didn't buy them because it was for the wedding of her friend. It was real. And then it was her bedroom. And in the bedroom, you could see the sound woman with her headphones, me with my monitor, my assistant even sitting on the bed. Door to the living room closed. And inside the living room, my wonderful collaborator, Peter Indergand, my cinematographer, alone. So this would be, if you could film how he moved in this room together with this one lady. She told me later on, he's like a panther, but he's not aggressive. And that's, I think, the key. He moves like a panther. He came very close. Sometimes he's touching her. I mean, like holding the camera. But it's always like not intervening, you know. Someone, of course, he always starts by just sitting on the floor or some chair and waiting and doing nothing until she's really beginning to do her work. And then she was, because she was still exhausted, was still, in this whole not sleeping situation. And she went to the sofa, and he was like this close, and she fell asleep in front of this huge camera. I mean, the camera was this size, big camera, whatever. I don't even remember what, doesn't matter, but big camera. But important, not 4 people around her. Not that she had nothing to do and was just lovelorn, and we tried to show that and tell her what to do. Peter, let's talk about Peter. I grew up with 3 sisters and a mother, of course, and a grandmother, so a full phalanx of females. Me being the youngest son, I always wished to have a brother. Never had it. I found Peter. So somehow he's my brother I always dreamed of having, I mean, we got so close by a fight. We disagreed. And that's really the truth. We were doing a workshop with Slavek Iciak, a Polish cinematographer, one of the best in the world, about collaboration between cinematographers and directors. And I was very young. I was still in this period when I still worked for this pharmaceutical company. I dreamt of doing bigger films. I was probably 25, and Peter told me that I seem very arrogant to him. And he touched the point, because actually I was not secure, but he did it in such a nice way that I really got the feeling he cares, and he's very intelligent, and that's since then we do all the films together. Because he always, for example, I have a tendency, if I would do a framing of a shot, I do it too much postcard, and he gives this edge into it. And he always disagrees slightly with what I'm saying, but in a very nice way. It's not that we're really fighting hard, but we have always a very different point of seeing everything. And since I'm not directing shots, never, he has to shoot in a way that I can finally mount it in the editing room. So, you find sometimes these cinematographers that are really eager to do beautiful shots, and they do it. And then you end up in the editing room and you have this beautiful shot, wow. But there's a good moment here, and a good moment here, and a good moment here. And maybe now we have to find the cutaways or the inserts or whatever trick to put that together, because these people don't move. So Peter, when he feels, I got a moment where I'm pretty sure Christian will use it, because he is in the film. He's the first spectator of the movie here. He immediately changes his position. Next shot. It's about editing. A good cinematographer is already an editor. It's a tricky thing. You can't repeat anything. You work with, available light, of course. There's the whole restrictions of reality. It's not a set you can really, I never would call a cinematographer in a documentary film a DOP, because that's something very different. A DOP is sitting next to the director in a huge set, defining lighting, camera movements, but actually brain working. But as a cinematographer in a documentary, you really do it. And you can't repeat it, and it's not so much of a setup, but it is, of course, also a setup. So Peter is my partner in crime during many, many weeks and months before, when we develop, for example, special cameras, which I like, because he's helping me constantly also to define the way we're going to shoot the story. He's really my closest collaborator. Yeah. And that's basically, that's it. I always tell him, if one day I will work with another cinematographer, I will tell him, but so far I never got bored, It's not, like Kieslowski did once a film with the 10 Commandments, so he uses another cinematographer or DOP for every film, because that would be too much of the same guy always working with, but since I'm only doing one film every 4 years, I'm always happy to have my brother around, you know. And he's coming to the editing room, and he advises me. Very important. So you have to find your partner